Hi, Sean Hocking here from Metal Postcard Records, and welcome to my little piece to camera. I've been invited to speak about any subject to do with music that I like, and what's been annoying me especially recently is the lack of people talking about politics and music, and especially those people who say that politics shouldn't be in music, popular music. I won't say underground or independent. I believe in popular music. Especially, and I'm speaking to you on the day that the Greek government just voted in a far left party for the first time in 60 years. So you never know, things may get better. But I think the best music has an element of politics. That's what popular music, popular culture. You see it in all the other areas of popular culture, from film, documentaries, on your television, in your newspapers, in your magazines. Although in some of your magazines they don't have too much politics. They want to get people upset if they're worrying about how they look. So what do I want to tell you about? I want to tell you about bands like the MC5. The MC5 were amazing. Fantastic when they sang all the old rock and roll songs, but essentially absolute pure joy on that live album, when you just get the sense of the White Panthers, Detroit, Watts riots, all that sort of thing. And around the same period, Marvin Gaye, best stuff he ever did, sounds as good today as it ever did, and is as relevant today as it ever was. It's music from certain periods that really set you on fire. I'm thinking on my feet, but if you think about it, the Beatles' White Album, it does the same thing. It talks about a period of flux, and it's excitement, and there's politics, but it doesn't have to be all in your face. And then it sort of died a bit for a while until until punk rock came along. And at that time I was 11 or 12 years old, and just the excitement of seeing the Clash album cover was enough for me. I was a young lad. I couldn't afford to go and buy an album for $3.99. Even then, my pocket money didn't cover it for at least a month. So I'd wander into Smith's every Saturday and just look at the cover and look at the names of the titles and just imagine how exciting the music was. And because I was that young, I wasn't allowed to stay up late enough to listen to Peel, even if I knew who he was. So it was sort of after those initial 76, 77 hearing of certain things that would then make you start exploring. And a lot of times you just went in the record shop looking for stuff, even if you couldn't afford it, and then you would listen to it. So early punk rock, not the oi sort of rubbish where they're all yelling "Wah!" or "I hate the police" or all that sort of stuff. It's fine if you're 15, but it doesn't really have a long shelf life. Although I'm still a little bit fond of Discharge, but I think a bunch of very fat mid-50s punk rockers with Mohicans shouting "Wah!" doesn't really do it for me. But if you go through again, I suppose post-punk is the most amazing period for political music was sort of the early 80s. And with wonderful bands like the Selector, the Beat, and of course the most amazing band, the Specials, who could dance and politics all in one breath. And we lived through the period of Thatcherism, and our artists, because that's how I consider them, wrote about those issues. And it wasn't just public politics, but personal politics, women's politics, and anti-racism politics, or a whole range of things which we just don't seem to have in today's popular culture. Can you imagine Ghost Town now being #1 in the charts, and the whole country sitting down and watching that video on Thursday evening? I don't think it's going to happen. So again, never know, it might. So a quick run through my favourite sort of political records, or records with include politics, but it was also great music. I would, as I said, mention the MC5 live album, The Clash first, Sandinista, which is basically the concept. Sandinista created the idea of Metal Postcard Records in my mind. 6 glorious sides of music from all around the world that they'd encountered on their travels. So you've got dub from Kingston, you've got music from Nicaragua, Mexican music, American heartland music, old-fashioned rock and roll, British punk, all in one big mismatch. And the reviews of the album at the time saying, "Oh, it's all over the place," but it just sounds great. It sounds great now, and everybody should be listening to that album at least once or twice a month, I say. Okay, so from there, then we moved on, as I said, on to the 80s with the Specials, the Selector, the Beat, and that period of Thatcherism where now they show sort of documentaries of the 1980s, and it's all bankers walking around with big brick phones and yuppies, but that wasn't the world we all lived in. Most of us lived in a completely different world, and we were informed by the politics of songwriters from bands like Delta 5 and Rough Trade Records, or the politics of the Slits, or, as I said, the Specials, or even early sort of new romantic music was as much political, because it was about fighting against the drab dourness of what Thatcher had created for us. And then at the end of the 80s, when she was still there, house music came from Chicago, and suddenly we could all be in the same space. I won't say club, we could all be in the same space, whether it be inside or outside. Whether you be a crusty, well, they didn't really, they had the word raver, but it was a crusty could be next to a club person, and black, white, stray, gay, and these things don't seem important now, but at the time we were all separated, and to come together and dance in one place, and it was popular music, but it was a political movement by young kids or young adults. And I was just thinking earlier today, before I did this, is when was the last time I actually heard a dance music record that was openly political, that people would just go out and dance to and have fun to? And I can't think, after Open Up by Left Field. And again, think about the age of these people. They're all people from my generation, from the punk generation. Maybe it's, but a few more years of this sort of dreadful life, the climate going haywire, with austerity, with increasingly unpleasant politicians. Somebody's got to get up and sing about it. I want somebody to sing about it. I don't want just people to moan about it in posts on Facebook. Let's get it out there in the culture, and let's talk about it more. So all I'm saying is more politics in independent music, more politics in music from around the world, and there is, you've got to search hard. I've got a band on my label called the Vinyl Records from New Delhi. They're a bunch of young women from Assam, and they think about women's politics in India, because women's politics in India is a seriously unpleasant issue at the moment, and it's great to have young women going out there and saying who they are and being proud of themselves. Here in Hong Kong, we've got a wonderful band called My Little Airport, who operate entirely on their own terms, and they sing songs about it's my country, not my party. I'll leave that to your imagination, what they're talking about there. It's not too hard to work out. And they, when they played the Clockenfat Festival last December, they were the only ones with a big sign up there saying "Fuck you, CY Lung" behind them when they were playing on stage. And I really love statements like that. I love bands and acts who can make music, and I should say with My Little Airport, you should listen to their music. It's the tweest of twee pop, sometimes mostly sung in Cantonese. So it's like Bell and Sebastian at their tweest, mixed with the Clash's politics. It's just amazing stuff. And there are people like this around the world, and we should be singing their praises and putting them in front of other people and making this music more popular. I've got an artist who I don't even know what's happened to him, DJ Foundation on Metal Postcard Records. He's a mashup artist who in the late noughties, as they are wont to be called, created a bunch of mashups that talked about the Iraq War, American imperialism, what was happening in Iraq, and nobody noticed. Nobody noticed at all when we released it, and probably nobody will notice. But what's very sad is he's from Mosul, and now Mosul is under the control of ISIS, and we don't know what's happened to him. We no idea. He may be alive. He may be dead. It's very sad, but you know, he was brave enough to stand up and say it as it was. And I want more of this, please. So anyway, I think I've ranted enough, haven't I? You know, never mind the bollocks. And then here's the whatever you want, and let's have more politics and music, and hopefully somebody will let me rant about something else next time round, because I enjoy a good rant.